Catch Me If You Can is a 2002 movie directed by Steven Spielberg and based on the autobiography of former American conman and forger Frank William Abagnale Jr., played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Considered one of Spielberg's best works, the movie was a huge success, grossing $352 million against an initial budget of $52 million. Born in 1948 in New Rochelle, United States, Frank William Abagnale Jr. was one of the most notorious and skilled swindlers ever. Starting at the age of 16 and in just 5 years, he managed to defraud the US state of more than $2 million, each time posing as a different person and forging hundreds of checks. Today, Frank Abagnale Jr. works as a financial consultant in the field of tax fraud. Frank Abagnale Jr. is a 16-year-old boy living in New York City. In 1964, he is faced with his parents' divorce due to marital tensions stemming from his father's problems with the IRS. Unwilling to choose which of them to live with, he runs away from home, preferring a life of total independence. Short of money, he develops a talent as a conman and manages to pass himself off as a Pan Am airline co-pilot under the name of Frank Taylor, forging paychecks and earning thousands of dollars. He then forges a degree from Harvard University and passes himself off as a pediatrician under the identity of Dr. Frank Connors, working in a hospital in Atlanta where he meets his future fiancée, Brenda Strong. In order to get into the good graces of his future father-in-law, he also pretends to have a law degree, and once he has passed the bar exam, he starts working as a lawyer in Louisiana. The story centers on Frank's constant pursuit by FBI Inspector Carl Enretti, played by Tom Hanks, with whom the protagonist develops a rather personal relationship. No one knows the true identity of the swindler who, by changing his name, profession, and past, manages to elude the authorities time and time again. In 1969, Enretti finally manages to find Frank while he is printing false checks in Montrichard, his mother's native French village. After serving a 6-year solitary sentence in France, Frank receives a reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation with the FBI, thanks to his skills as a forger. He accepts the assignment, later becoming good friends with Enretti. According to the real Frank Abagnale, about 80% of all the events recounted in the movie correspond to reality. However, there are some differences. Frank is the third of 4 children, whereas in the movie he is an only child. Furthermore, Abagnale stated that his father never had any problems with the tax authorities, but that he was his first victim. Actually, after Frank ran away, the two never saw or spoke to each other again. Frank used 8 different identities, whereas in the movie only 4, pilot, policeman, doctor, and lawyer, are represented. At the age of 19, Frank left his profession as a pediatrician after risking the death of a child, and became a lawyer under the false identity of Robert Black, only passing the bar on his 3rd attempt. The agent who chased Frank was named Joseph Shee, in the book Sean O'Reilly. She was still working in the FBI when the book Catch Me If You Can was published. Therefore, Frank did not want to include his real name. Within the 2 works, one of the first pivots around which the story revolves is the family separation, caused by the divorce of the parents and of which Frank, as happens to many young people, is the victim who decides to live wrongly as not to be forced to choose between his mother and father. In particular, the absence of the father is one of the most significant themes, not only for Abagnale, but for Spielberg himself, since both of them share the figure of an indifferent father. The path of affirmation of the person is also recounted. In order to make his father proud, Frank lies to him about his career and reassures him about his steps with the tax authorities, hoping in this way to reunite his family and make everything go back to the way it was before. Running away from home and starting a life of lies leads the boy to find himself in an extreme loneliness, well represented in the sad Christmas phone calls he exchanges with Inspector Enretti, the only person who is actually close to him in such a difficult period of his life. Areti also takes on the role of a parent, replacing Frank's father and worrying not only about catching the criminal he has become, but helping a young boy back on the straight and narrow in an attempt to spare him terrible consequences with the law. Frank is desperate to become somebody, not just for the sake of money, but also for that of personal aspiration. This theme is described in the movie in an episode during which the young man compares himself to James Bond, dressing and acting like him. Frank is just a boy pretending to be an adult, taking all that a capitalist culture can offer, that is, materialism taken to the extreme. And everything he learns comes from materialism and from the fake, perfect, unattainable models we see on television: a pilot, a policeman, a doctor, a lawyer. By behaving in this way, he loses his innocence as a boy and is forced to lie to everyone, to his father, his mother, even to his future fiancée and, of course, to the authorities. Catch Me If You Can mirrors the lives of many young people who, in an attempt to make their parents proud and establish themselves as somebody in a society that never seems to have room for them, are forced to survive by grabbing every opportunity life gives them, often without considering their negative aspects and unpleasant consequences. Frank William Abagnale Jr.'s life is that of an ordinary young man who had the misfortune of being too intelligent and perceptive, yet not sensitive enough to understand the seriousness of his actions. The movie is structured as a journey of growth. First, the boy learns to lie in the guise of an authority figure, believing he's capable of doing anything. He manages to assert himself in the adult world by becoming first a pilot, then a doctor, and finally a lawyer, making inevitable choices that will have just as many consequences. And finally, he is forced to admit his own defeat, having failed to redeem himself from the figures of a weak father and a mother indifferent to the fate of her son. The peculiar narrative arc of Frank's character culminates in his redemption, and the boy finds his atonement, becoming an FBI collaborator and finding a friend in the inspector who brought him to justice. Both the book and the movie about Abagnale's life, besides telling interesting stories with a nice touch of humor, should be taken as food for thought for every ambitious young person, teaching them to weigh their choices and not to give up in the face of difficulties, and to make adults understand that the serenity of their children must always come first.